Chapter 2, The Role of Queen. Alright, here we go again. I pulled my shirt over my head, smoothing it down before I sat on the edge of the bed and waited for my escort to arrive. Is Magnus going to train us personally this time? By the way, we getting gym time with Magnus? It was mid-morning and I was being discharged after a few hours of being scanned, poked, and examined. Again. It had been a daily exercise since I woke 2 days ago. My psi had been stable except one small spike during one of the counseling sessions Dr. Sasaki set up for me. At this point, he felt my recovery would be aided by being in a more comfortable environment. At the very least, my sanity would be. He hadn't been amused when I said that. Apparently, it was insulting I didn't find his infirmary comfortable. I was looking forward to leaving, though. Who wanted to stay in the hospital? But even if I was leaving, I was still banned from using Psi until I recovered, which would be some time yet. Not that I wanted to use it anyway. The elites were still to stay suppressed when in my vicinity as well. Interesting. There was a soft tap at the door, interrupting my thoughts. Come in. It slid open, but the person there was Dr. Sasaki. No escort in sight. Please tell me it's not a last-minute exam. Come to say goodbye? He smiled thinly, as if he knew what I'd been thinking.
I received a notice your escort is on the way. I will walk with you to meet them, if you're ready.
Thank God. I am. He nodded expectantly towards the door. I hopped off the bed and followed as he left the room. Getting all this quality time with Dr. Sasaki.
I'd prefer to keep you under observation for another few days.
Yes, you've made that quite clear, believe me. And yes, I'm aware that you're my physician and it's your job to look after me. You've also made that quite clear.
Endgame is overrun with problem patients who refuse to cooperate when I try to look after them. I found it necessary to repeat myself. Often.
I'll do my best not to add to your stress. If those circles under your eyes get any worse, I'm afraid you may be the one needing medical care. Dang, got him. He looked surprised by the teasing for a moment before letting out a dry chuckle.
I appreciate the concern for my well-being. If more agents were that considerate, I would likely not struggle with periorbital, with dark circles. But I will not deny fatigue is any doctor's constant companion. I hope you are looking forward to a change of scenery, as the others put it. Despite my trepidation, I hope you will better acclimate to your new situation outside the infirmary, and that will, in turn, speed your general recovery. Once you are outside my ability to keep a close watch on you, it is possible the Council will attempt to rush you into training. I have insisted that you are not to begin training until you are medically cleared to do so. However, they, like my patients, do not always cooperate. You will inform me if they attempt to override my decision, yes?
Yes, of course I will. Sooner or later I was going to need to face my official recruitment into Endgame, but it wasn't something I wanted to rush. The longer I could put it off, the better. Even better if I had the equivalent of a note from my doctor.
I believe I told you not to think of futile things.
I started when I realized how close Dr. Sasaki's face was to mine. Pushing him back a little, I looked away, a frown passing over my face. I'd not quite got used to his tendency to ignore people's personal space when observing them. We are gonna have so much fun on your route one day. You said not to think of them too much. You neglected to define how much is too much, though.
At the point it brings such a frown to your face, it's already too much.
A soft chuckle escaped. He could be pedantic about the most annoying things. I wasn't thinking anything futile. Just that I have my own reasons for wanting to put off learning to use Psi.
Ah, so you wish to use your doctor's advice as a defense. Good. You need more time to adjust. And to heal.
I like that he's not picky. He's like, You know what? If this means a patient listens to me, I'll take it.
I believe the others have little respect for how unique your situation is. Their basis will be the power surges they see in the children who come here. Your situation was of a different magnitude.
Yes, yes. Because a child's Psi isn't as developed as mine was when the expansion happened. You mentioned that.
And also because children are not usually severely traumatized by their arrival here as you were. The Council has no one but themselves to blame for their precious queen rank requiring ample recovery time.
Based on what I know of them already, I'm sure they'd love hearing that.
Whether or not they love it, it's exactly what I shall tell them if they try to rush your recovery. So you may use my orders as your excuse.
Will it do any good? I know I'm new, but I already get the feeling people don't stand up to the Council often.
They are our governing body, if you will, but I refuse to allow it to be a dictatorship where the health of the agents is involved. They know this about me. I will override their orders if I need to.
How long have you been the chief medic here? I mean, you seem pretty young.
6 years. And I am not as young as I look.
Did you come here as a child, like most of the agents?
Yes, though I was older than most. My situation was, in a way, also unique, but still very different from your own.
Look at this man teasing things that I won't learn for many roots to come. How rude.
And my arrival to Endgame was both a positive experience and an improvement from my previous living situation.
I see. I've been working through my feelings about all this, and I still hadn't decided if it would have been better had I come here as a child like everyone else. It would have been easier, less painful, but better, indeed. I still didn't know. Different. Would have been different. Dr. Sasaki, do you think it's possible I'll be able to... He cut me off, gently tapping his display against my forehead and clicking his tongue. Sorry, I did it again.
That's enough of that talk for now. You are upsetting yourself again. And do not deny it. Anxiety has clear physical markers which you're exhibiting. Do not force me to scan you to prove it.
I've been scanned and prodded enough for today, I think.
Then it would be wise to ensure I don't need to do it again to prove a point.
Oh, hello. We got the King's Guard coming to get us as our escort. Interesting. I was expecting Vaughn, but I guess not. Dr. Sasaki and I neared the end of the infirmary hall right as two unfamiliar women entered. One of them grinned when she saw us.
You. Didn't expect you to bring her down to us. I wasn't bringing her to you, Mara. When I received notice Morgan's escort was on the way, I expected your wife and other members of her guard.
See? So was I.
They got called out to the field earlier. Vaughn asked if Odette and I would take over. And don't worry, we're aware of the mandate to keep our Psi suppressed around her.
She held up a wrist to reveal the inhibitor fastened there.
Very good. I'll entrust her to you, then.
Dr. Sasaki turned back to me, a frown on his face.
For the time being, I'd like you to keep yourself restricted to your quarters. I will stop by tomorrow to check on you. If your Psi remains stable outside the medical wing, I will allow you to begin looking around the facility. We can't suppress the Psi of every Esper in our ranks until you recover. If it appears to be enough to suppress our top-ranking agents, there's no reason to restrict your movements. You will contact me right away if you exhibit any unusual symptoms, yes?
My internal messaging hasn't been reinstated. The look of annoyance on his face was almost amusing. He muttered the word ridiculous under his breath.
You should be able to use the console in your room to contact me if need be. Mara will ensure this is the case before she leaves you alone. Speaking of names, it's considered a basic courtesy to leave the introductions between new people when you know everyone in both parties you.
She shot me a grin.
I'm Mara, and yes, I'll make sure your console is operational before I leave your quarters. As far as I'm aware, you have a functional larynx and are more than capable of leading the introductions yourself. Unless your phonation ability is being affected by a medical condition I'm unaware of. If I need to do an example of your vocal folds...
I held in a laugh as he reverted to medical jargon right away. Something I had noticed he did when working or trying to irritate someone.
You don't give me that. You can take your vocal fold examination and...
I'm Odette, First Guard King's Bishop. It's nice to meet you. Morgan, was it?
Good timing, Odette. She ruthlessly cut off the argument as she stretched her hand out to me, and I got the feeling this level of bickering was pretty common. I reached for her hand with a quiet laugh, but you left off bantering with Mara and batted my wrist away.
Despite that we are all wearing inhibitors, it might be best to avoid physical contact as much as possible until we verify your psi is stable. Particularly for those of us with more problematic abilities such as bishops, and equally problematic knights. Don't want her to accidentally phase through a wall. It is the likelihood of her not phasing out of it that concerns me.
Phasing through a wall?
I'll explain on our way to your room.
So I couldn't touch anyone or wander around. Fun. Mara spared a nod to Dr. Sasaki before she stepped back towards the door. I turned back to him with a slight smile. Thank you for everything. Sorry to be such a problem patient.
No need. I was merely doing my job. And I'll be seeing you again quite soon anyway, so there's no need for an extended farewell. Be sure to rest and not exert yourself, Morgan.
I'll remember. He left us there, and after a brief pause, I followed Mara and Odette. They led me, for the first time, out of the infirmary and into a wide, tall corridor. It was like passing from one world to the next. The door to the medical wing shut behind us, and for a moment I felt strangely lost and overwhelmed, dwarfed by the magnitude of it all. For a moment we walked without speaking, and I tried to take it all in. But after a while, the silence got me. Yeah, let's ask about our boy Magnus. So the two of you work directly under Magnus? Is that what the King's Guard is?
You could say that.
Technically, all agents in the organization work under Magnus, but we're more or less his personal bodyguards.
I thought you were going to say babysitters.
What's that old saying? Tomato, tomato?
So that meant the Queen's Guard was comprised of my bodyguards? That didn't make sense considering they had gone out to the field and I had not. The confusion must have been written on my face because Mara answered my question before I could ask it.
In Endgame, our agents are divided into teams that range between 4 and 8 members. The First Guard is an 8-member team with 2 sub-teams called the King's Guard and Queen's Guard. The King's Guard has Magnus at the head role, then myself, Odette, and one other person, a rook. Your guard has an identical setup, but with you in the central role. Your guard functions more like one of our leading field teams. They take on assignments much like everyone else.
I noticed she said central and not head, which was a relief. If they expected me to lead a team of psychic soldiers anytime soon, they were guilty of some extreme wishful thinking.
The King's Guard goes into the field less often and sticks closer to the tower to guard Magnus.
And to keep him from doing anything stupid, when we can.
I've been noticing that everyone seems to have an interesting relationship with Magnus. Understatement of the century. From what I know of Endgame, he's the commander, but everyone treats him kind of...
like the eccentric weirdo he is.
Well, those weren't the exact words I was going to use.
There is a level of irreverence that may take some getting used to, especially among the higher-ranked agents. Ranks and positions aside, most of us have known Magnus for a long time. It's difficult to not be casual with him. Especially given how he acts. I'm sure you've seen that firsthand.
He did strike me as a little odd.
He wanted to come down today himself to be here when you were released, but Sasuke banned him from the infirmary after he kept sneaking in without his psi inhibitor.
What a rebel. Yeah, I noticed he's reluctant to wear it. He said something about not being able to be disconnected for too long.
Well, there's that, but he's also just very inquisitive. He refuses to accept that he doesn't always need to know what would happen if.
I see. That seemed accurate based on what I'd seen of him.
We've also never known of a queen capable of mimicking king rank abilities. It's usually a hurdle they can't cross.
You're implying that's not the case for me? The two of them shared a look that told me I was right. Sorry. I don't remember much of what happened when I was in the infirmary. Not before a couple of days ago. And I haven't been filled in on all the details.
Well, as you guessed, you demonstrated you can imitate Magnus's ability to manipulate technology telekinetically.
You first did it after Magnus returned you to your room during that flashy escape attempt of yours. Sasuke suspects that it's because Magnus carried you back to your room. The prolonged physical contact may have been the catalyst. Oh, interesting.
Interesting. Okay, I need to... Because I know that Ari definitely carried Morgan back to the room. I kind of feel like Kesa carried Morgan up in the mansion. And potentially Jack carried Morgan in at the court. Is that what it is? The prolonged physical contact? While she was like all woo from the overuse of Psy. Magnus carried me back? This was my first time hearing about that. But now it made sense why Sasuke had been worried about me shaking Odette's hand. Right. I hope I didn't do anything too horrible.
You tried to alter the readout on the medical equipment to prove you were totally fine for release despite the raging fever.
That's why Magnus was like, whoa.
And the fact you could barely walk on your own.
That seems like something I do.
Everyone was pretty stunned you could use your abilities that way.
You also did it every time you tried to scan your stats for the next few hours. He was very annoyed.
That also seems accurate.
He doesn't like patients who don't cooperate.
He mentioned that. Several times.
I'm sure you're relieved to be away from there.
It's nice to see more of this place anyway. I was feeling a little cooped up.
Vaughn was planning a tour for you, but it looks like it'll have to wait since she's not here, and Yu wants you to stick close to your flat for now.
Just Vaughn? My entire guard wasn't planning to escort me around like a VIP?
Huh. After the last argument you and Caleb had, Vaughn swore she'd keep him away from you until he could promise not to antagonize you.
I wasn't at all sad to hear that. I hadn't seen him much since my arrival, but he'd visited the day before yesterday. Just once. And made it a point to get on my nerves. Repeatedly. He was very sore about having a building knocked on his head. Oh joy, I can't wait to fight with him on his route. And combined with my irritation at having been kidnapped... Oh, sorry. Apprehended. Rudely. Well, it hadn't made for a pleasant visit.
Ari is keeping his distance now that you're awake, just to ensure you don't accidentally mimic his abilities again.
Oh, Ari, no!
The last time you ended up in the city, it caused a mild panic.
Oh my goodness. She got to the city! Oh, man. What a time. Poor Endgame.
Mild is an understatement. The entire place was in an uproar while we tried to locate you.
It sounds like it was a rough week and a half for everyone.
It was interesting, to be sure, but it's all over with for now. You'll be able to relax better in your own place, and just focus on your recovery. I think it'll be a while before you have to worry about training. I know the Council's eager to get you started, but you has made it clear you're not ready.
Not that the council wanted to hear it. I am sure they'll keep pushing.
Is there a reason they're so keen to get me started?
Well, you are a queen.
Setting aside the need to get your abilities under control, Endgame has been without a queen rank for around 10 years now. All while several other problematic factions have flaunted theirs.
Several? Aren't queen-ranked Espers pretty rare?
They are, but it's a big planet. Endgame being the face of global peace, well...
The council doesn't enjoy being outclassed.
Ah. That didn't sound like it fit my mental image of Endgame. I guess I should have picked up on the desperation, given how I was approached.
The council was desperate. Everyone else was just following orders. Ari and Caleb are your guards, so I hope you don't have hard feelings about that incident.
Part of your guard? My wife is the other part, and I'm sure if you need to smack Ari and Kale's heads together a few times for stress relief, Vaughn will help you.
It's good to know I'll have someone on my side.
I think you'll find we're all on your side, if you give us a chance.
I don't know. It feels a bit like I'm the odd one out. All the rest of you have been here since you were children. I'm not the same.
You aren't the only person to come here as an adult.
Really?
My situation isn't like yours, but I was 27 when I arrived. Only a little younger than you are now. You'll get used to this place. It's just going to take some time.
Interesting. I wonder why it took until that age for you. I already knew that. It was what happened during that time that had me worried. We were silent for a few minutes and the lift came to a halt. When we stepped out, it was into a corridor very different from the one we'd been in before. Darker, narrower, with doors along the sides.
This is one of the residential areas. Many of our agents live in other buildings in the complex, but there are higher-ranked agents that live here at the main tower. Some lower-ranked ones down on the lower floors, but this building is mostly administration and training.
There's also the main hospital here, as well as some research labs on the subfloors. All the guard members live on this floor.
Vaughn and I are right next door to where you've been assigned, so if you need anything at any point, you can come find us.
I'll apologize in advance for noises you may hear later in the route. Hopefully it'll be fine. She stopped in front of one door a short way down the hall. There was an embossed D04 on the door.
This is your flat. You can set the password later, but we set it as your birthday for now.
I watched curiously as she tapped something into an actual keypad and opened the door. Password? That's old school.
In a building full of people who can get into any flat they want with little effort, I don't think they wanted to go all out with the latest in retinal scans and voice recognition. Kind of a waste of money.
Fair enough. Though that meant the passwords were just a formality too, I suppose. A show of security that didn't do much. True. Oh. Interesting. So this is the flat that was like rearranged at the end of Ari's route. It was like made to be bigger and all that stuff. So they didn't go with copying her flat this time. How interesting. Okay. I followed her into the unfamiliar flat. It was nice, though not too large. There was a bedroom, adjoining kitchen. It was bigger than my place in New Albion.
We brought all your things from your previous flat, but your furniture is in a storage unit for now. You can have it moved up if you want it.
At first, they intended to recreate your flat here, to create a familiar environment for you. Since the rooms are modular, they didn't think it would be difficult.
Recreate my flat? That sounded odd.
Magnus halted the project halfway through and had them do a new room for you, though.
Interesting. Okay. So Magnus stepped in this time and was like, no, don't do that.
Apparently, after observing you, he thought you'd be unnerved by a recreation of your flat.
He was correct. I wasn't sure what about our limited time together had given him that idea, but he was probably right. I won't lie, that might have been a little strange to walk into. As I stepped further into the flat, Mara went to check a nearby console set up on the table.
This is operational, so you can access the internal messaging system from here. Seems like it's only got limited access, though. Probably just a precaution, but you can at least call medical. Since you'll be sticking close to home for the time being, we'll make sure you can stock the kitchen. A lot of us have dinner in a nearby lounge with a galley, but it's nice to eat in sometimes, too.
And Maggie said something about owing you some tangerines. No idea what the hell that's about.
Oh my god. First of all, Maggie. Second of all, the freaking tangerines are gonna haunt me forever. Ah, that was from our meeting in New Albion. But he's not wrong. He does owe me tangerines. Though Ari and Caleb were the ones who made me drop them all over the street when they recruited me. Yes, I had forgotten that tiny little detail.
I'm shocked he even remembers that meeting. You must have made an impression.
I don't know about that. We didn't interact much. But I don't think I'm quite that forgettable either. Somehow, the strange normalcy of discussing things like stocking a kitchen and where to have dinner was comforting among the rest of the uncertainty. It felt like a burden had been lifted now that I was out of the medical ward. Or at least partially lifted. It was nice to be in a normal-feeling environment for a change.
In that case, we'll leave you to get settled, unless you'd like us to stay a while longer.
No, I got the impression Dr. Sasaki wanted me to limit my time around other Espers for now anyway.
Alright. Well, like I said, your console is limited, so you can't call me if you need something, but I'll check in later. You can reach the admin and different departments within Endgame, such as medical, so you can contact you if you need anything.
Thank you. For a moment, I just stood near the front door taking deep breaths and trying to get my bearings. My gaze landed on the console Mara had showed me earlier. I wondered who I should talk to about getting more system permissions. Not being able to do something simple, like contact people, was irritating. Maybe I'll reach out to the administration later on and see what they can do about it. For the time being, I edged my way into the flat, feeling a bit more like I was in a hotel than in my new living space. It was foreign and too tidy to feel like home, but it was still an improvement over the medical ward. I kicked my shoes off and left them by the front, wondering where my personal belongings were. Probably in the bedroom. Magnus, please don't be in the bedroom. Please don't be in the bedroom. Please do not be lying on the bed. Please. Please. I swear. I swear. I will die. It wasn't like I had very much if you didn't include my furniture. But instead of going to check that, I went to the sofa and flopped face first into a pillow. Okay. Phew. Okay, I'll be fine. It still felt like I was stumbling through a dream where nothing was quite real, and everything was turned on its head. I'd had nothing but time to think about it all, go over every moment in my head again and again. Big changes were always so mundane despite the way they shook up everything you knew. Everything that had happened was so monumental, but here I was clutching a sofa pillow and realizing I might need to unpack. And worry where I'd get lunch. Could I access my bank account? How was I going to pay for stuff? I sat up and rubbed my face. Right. No feeling sorry for myself. I'd done enough of that for the last 2 days. So I got up and spent the next 10 minutes poking around my new flat. The first thing I learned was that I didn't need to unpack, I needed to reorganize. They'd unpacked for me, but I'd have to go through it all and find everything. Okay, we're safe. We're safe. It's good. We're all good. Everybody's safe. There was a large bedroom just off the main living area. It included a selection of books, only some of which were mine. Others were new. I'd only glance at a few of the titles before leaving them to check everything else out. All my kitchenware was put away. Even the card from Trent was there on the counter. An out-of-place reminder of a life that was already over. I had just gone back into the living area when the door chimed. A slight frown crossed my face. Mara? That was quick. I thought she'd come check on me much later, not 20 minutes later. Yeah. Hi, whoa. I went to open the door, surprised to find, of all people, Magnus Ulrich standing there burdened with several cloth shopping bags. Are you wearing your psi inhibitor? Can you come in? Is it legal for you to come in here without that? Need some help? Need a hand with those?
I have them, but it would be preferable if I could come in.
Of course. Though somehow I'm surprised you're even asking. I know, I was expecting him to just be waiting in the bedroom like, oh hey, I was wondering when you were gonna show up in here. It won't be long before they find me, you know.
How mean.
I stepped aside to let him come inside, remembering to glance at his wrist to check for the psi inhibitor only after he was already inside. There was one clasp there, so I guess he decided to be obedient today. Magnus carried all the bags to the attached kitchen, setting them down. Dare I ask what all this is about?
I'd call it a housewarming, but it's really just some basics. The council has denied my request to reinstate full system access, and I realized you wouldn't be able to order your own food.
Interesting. So he, immediately tried to get you full system access, and they were just like, no. Okay.
We can't have you starving on us.
That would be a shame, I agree. Where did all this come from? I can't imagine you went shopping yourself.
I might have. You can't picture me perusing the produce section, squeezing melons.
Did it have to be melons of all things? No. And I've been told you rarely leave the tower.
Well, that's true. There are a few shops within our grounds, though, for the convenience of our agents. Still, I ordered them and had them delivered.
We can get deliveries here?
The shops on our grounds and a few in the city nearby may make deliveries to Corsolaris, yes.
I joined him as he unloaded the items to the counter, both amused and a little touched. A practical gift, huh? I'm surprised.
You haven't known me nearly long enough to make those kinds of comments to me, Morgan Leone.
I think I've got a good feeling for how you usually are with people. He turned to me with an enigmatic smile.
I wouldn't be so sure of that.
Somehow, that intense look in his blue eyes caused my face to flush warm and I turned away from him. Well, thank you for taking the time to do this.
If I told you it was just an excuse to skip work, would you still be grateful?
Grateful. And somehow not remotely surprised.
How do you like the place? I picked the design myself. Somehow I thought you'd like something bright and spacious.
Of course, it's beautiful. It's much bigger than my place in New Albion.
Oh? Being a prime-tier student doesn't mean you get a reasonably sized apartment in the city.
Please. No one cares where you live as long as you show up to class on time. Being in prime tier means you get live teachers and not an AI.
And the neural enhancements, of course.
And those?
You suspect those will help when you begin training. You're getting a late start, but you have the benefit of better mental processing than most of our new recruits.
Aren't most of your new recruits children?
Yes. It's wonderful you'll catch up to them so fast. And how are you settling in so far?
For the half hour I've been here?
Weren't they bringing you here at 8 o'clock?
10 o'clock.
I must have misremembered. I didn't check the memo before I left my office this morning. I wonder what was happening at 8 o'clock then.
Hopefully nothing important.
Well, I'm sure I'll figure it out when I get back to my office.
Sure. I'm sure it's fine.
I hope you know if you need anything at all, you can reach out to me.
I'm sure you're busy.
I am, but not too much to help our newest member if she needs it.
Do you give this privilege to all new members?
No. I used to go down to the academy every so often to observe. Children are surprisingly mean.
You got bullied down there, too?
I blame Mara, frankly. She sets such a poor example for others.
I'm sure it has nothing to do with your behavior.
None at all. Anyway, I won't be able to stay long. I'm sure you have had little time to yourself anyway. And someone is bound to start looking for me any minute. This place isn't much, but I hope it helps in your journey to settle in. Ah! I made sure they brought in some books you might find interesting. You won't have much to do, and with your system access limited, you can't read online. You may wish to visit the archives soon, but there are books on the founding of Endgame and other subjects that might prove useful.
I noticed those. And thank you. Though, the Endgame archive, I hadn't even thought about that. Big library! A shiver of anticipation went through me. One of the largest and most historically complete information repositories on the planet. And now I had access to it? She gets this giant grin just thinking about it, and he's like, aw, that was probably the best revelation since my arrival. Magnus chuckled as he went past me, back towards the door. Oh, dang! Just come straight out and say it, huh? You don't say! You mean you don't just bring groceries and tangerines to everybody? Shock.
I hope you don't mind, but you've captured my attention, Morgan. I'll be observing your progress going forward. I'm looking forward to your development and what you bring to this illustrious organization. I already have a feeling things will be much more interesting now that you're here.
I didn't know about that. I doubted I'd affect things that much. He gave me another enigmatic smile as he opened the door.
Rest well. I'm sure we'll see each other again soon.
And he left as quickly as he'd come, just delivering groceries. Which struck me as almost humorous given his position in the organization. Though, at the very least, it solved the problem of what I'd have for lunch. I went to finish unpacking everything he brought and putting it away. I laughed again when I found the bag of tangerines with a note saying, "I believe I owed you these," attached. Stop, this boy. After that was done, I went to explore the books Magnus mentioned, and I curled up to read until Mara came to check on me later, this time with Vanessa in tow. I had a quiet dinner alone, and finally slept in a proper bed for the first time in days. It was a step up from the infirmary, even though I still wasn't sure what the coming days would bring.